Hello artist. We are starting on our unit in portraiture, so I wanted to show you guys how to do individual features. In this video, we are going to draw a nose. Now before I get started, I want to show you some things that I don't want to see, okay? So it never fails. I always have a student who's going to do this for a nose. Well, that's not a nose, that's an L, right? So that's a no-no. And somebody's going to do this. Honey, that's a triangle. That is not a nose. And, of course, there is. Unless you're drawing Captain Underpants, nobody's nose looks like that, honey. Okay? So, one more that I've seen frequently among students as they are just learning is that does not look like a nose at all. I don't know where that comes from. Okay? So the biggest issue with that is that a lot of people draw a line on the side of the nose, but you don't really have a line on the side of your nose. It's implied by the shading that is there. So whenever I draw a nose, and of course it's just a very generic, basic nose, I like to start off with the bottom of the nose. Some people also like to draw in some basic shapes. So I'm going to start with the basic shapes because that seems to be a pretty popular way to get these things started. As I'm drawing, draw along with me. Okay, draw along with me and pause the video when you need to. Okay? I'm going to start right here. Bottom of the nose. So I'm putting little place markers for the sides of the nostrils, the nostril holes, the bottom of the nose. Okay, and then I'm going to go in and I like to start with the nostrils, the holes, and they're not just a big circle. They're actually kind of a comma, and that really depends on how much you see of it. And it's not shaded all black. It starts to have like a gradient of shadow that comes out. Okay, and then I'm going to do the other side. And another misconception is that everything has to be perfectly symmetrical on the human face, but it really doesn't. Nature that's very rare that you see perfect symmetry on a human face. You might see it in butterflies because that's pretty much what they're known for, but no human has like a mirror image each side of their face. Okay, I decided I don't like where this line is over here. I want to move it down some. Okay, and one other disclaimer I want to put here. You see a lot of artists on YouTube where they never make a mistake. They do these time-lapse drawings, they never erase anything, they don't make any mistakes. Well, I just don't think that's very realistic. So if I make a mistake, I'm going to tell you and I'm going to erase it and show you the right way to do it. Alright, so back to our nose. And this part right here that kind of dips down a little bit, we're just going to let it come down a little bit lower because this nose is pretty much straightforward. Okay, now here's where those basic shapes that I was telling you about would come into play. You would have like a circle here and two smaller circles here and here, and then you would have some lines that go up. I don't like to put the lines up because that you become reliant on that and you use just the lines and you don't put the shading in where it needs to be, and most of the nose is just shading. That's why I think it's one of the more difficult facial features to draw. So I'm going to erase those circles, but just so you know, if you want to, that's an option. Okay, and I'm just sort of trying to flesh things out here and see if I like where they are. One nostril hole is way too big. I decided I want to make my nose a little bit wider. Okay, and come back, and when I draw these nostril holes, I'm going to go ahead and put the shading in. And it's not completely dark. It's like dark and then it gets lighter, just like a gradient. Okay. And now I think we're ready to start shading, really. I know it seems like, what, there's barely anything of the nose on there, but like I said before, the nose is mostly shading, and that's what makes it one of the most difficult parts, features of the face to draw. It's always good to work with a reference. I am not working with a reference right now, so this is going to be a very generic looking nose, but that's okay. You'll still get the idea. Okay. So around the nostrils, that's where we're going to focus on our shading. And we're going to assume that that your light source is up here. There's your light source, okay? So that the bottom of the nose is going to be shaded. If your light source were over to the side, over here, you would have more light spots on this side, okay? But I want to really show you the shading on the bottom of this nose. So this is the nostril hole, and this is the actual nostril itself, and the light is above this. It's going to be shaded in kind of dark down here. So you're going to go along that bottom edge of the nostril, put some shading in. I'm going to fix that a little bit. And here on the center of the nose, I'm going to put some shading there too. And then we're going to move over to the next side. Okay. All right. So I'm also of the philosophy that your eraser is not just an erasing tool, it's also a drawing tool. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to shade in more of this part of the nose here, and then I'm going to go in with my eraser and put in the reflected light. I'm using sort of a scrumbling shading type where you do squiggles. That's what I'm using here. It is a linear type of shading. Okay, I think I'm ready for my highlights. So I just need to decide where I'm going to put them. I think I'm going to put one right here. And over here. And maybe some reflected light here. I'm going to use my electric eraser. You guys know I love my electric eraser. You just always have to make sure that the tip is clean, and it's not right now, so I'm just going to clean it real quick. And that's all you have to do to clean it. And when you just decide like that, you get a nice point. So let me see where I want to put these reflected lights. I'm going to go back over this so you guys can get like a really good idea of what it does. Oops, I erased a little bit too much there. No big, I can always go back and fix it. Okay, now how would we do the side of the nose up here? And I'm putting more eraser marks here on the ball of the nose because that part sticks out further, and then I'll put some reflective light down here. I'm going to go ahead and shade the bridge of the nose, that's the upper part. And like I said before, you don't put lines. We're just going to do some light shading here. And eventually that will go up into the eye. Very light shading. Sometimes you'll see a little bit of shadow where the nose comes up between the eyes. Okay. And you know, I think I'm going to use my trusty Tortillion with this a little bit and just kind of blend it out. Remember, don't ever use your finger to smudge your drawings when you're using graphite. The oils in your fingers do not mix well with graphite, and it makes it look really dirty and difficult to control. All right. I think I want to switch over to my Candy Woodless pencil. It gets really nice and dark. It is an 8B that gets pretty dark. I'm going to just jump into those nostrils again, get a little extra shadow on there. Oops, a little bit too much. Now there's something else that your nose is connected to that you might not think of it. But when you're going to draw someone's face, you're probably going to draw their nose and their mouth. So there's a space that connects them called the Cupid's bow. And it essentially looks like it comes down like this to the mouth, okay? There's not two lines there. There are two raised up areas. And what you have to remember is that a good chunk of that, a lot of the space here is going to be underneath your nose, and your light source is coming from above. So it's going to be pretty nice and shaded in there. It's not just shaded in the middle, which this is what I'm going to do. I like to do like a J shape there in the middle. And it's darker on whatever side you decide. I mean, when you're drawing your person, you'll be able to see it. But if you're just making it up like I am, a good nice little J shape there is good. Just some light shading, and then light shading on the side of it. I know it looks a little bit like a mustache right now because of the type of lines I'm drawing, but we will smooth it out, okay? Also, the nose is going to put a shadow underneath the nostrils. Now remember, if you get too dark, or you put some shading in some place where you don't want it, you can always erase it. Now I'm not going to go down into the mouth right now because that's another video. But I am going to use my Tortillion and kind of smooth things out. Then I'm going to use my electric eraser and clean it up. Like I said, down here is where the mouth would be. I'm going to blend it out some more to make sure I like where those values are. And then I will go in with my eraser and clean it up. And I really wanted to show you guys that I use my eraser a lot, because I get a lot of students that think they should be able to sit down and just draw perfectly the first time. Well, let me tell you, I've been drawing for a really long time, and I still make mistakes, and I use my eraser. I've embraced the eraser. The eraser is my friend, especially my electric eraser. So if you've seen any of my other videos where I talk about it, you'll know how much I love this eraser. Just putting in my little reflected lights. It's really starting to come together. I'm going to lighten this up a little bit. Just take a big eraser and just kind of press it. It'll take some of that graphite off without leaving any texture to it, like lines where you've done the erasing. I do want to go and lighten this up a bit. I'm just tapping it there. It got a little bit too dark. And reflected light. La la la, reflected light. So this is pretty rough, but it should get you started on drawing a nose. I hope that you drew along with me and that you learned something, and that you are as excited about drawing faces as I am. Talk to you later, artists.